It's Sherry from Country Fried Homestead. Wanted to give you a little update on our garden this year. We do have it fully planted now, and I'll give you the rundown on what we've got. On this section of the garden, I planted this on April the 1st. I have a lot of potato plants in. I've got red potatoes and a few white potatoes because I'm okay with those too. And we also have a whole bunch of onions that I planted. I don't know for sure how many bulbs I have. I would say about 150 onion bulbs have been put in the ground. And I will start using those pretty soon to add to our dinners. And very few will get to be the full size onion, but I love green onions and this is the way I like to do it. Now on my first row I have a couple of onions planted, then I have my potatoes, and in between it needs to be tilled, and when I do till it, as soon as it dries enough, I'll till it and then we'll put in another row of onions. So I will have a constant steady flow of onions for when I make my salsa and my tomatoes, and I'll have plenty of homegrown onions and they will be amazing. I also have a row and a half of tomato plants. Every year I do about 30 plants, and I think I've got 32 plants in this year of tomatoes. So we should also have tomatoes coming out of our ears like normal, and that's good. Now I do want to mention, we've had so much rain here in Missouri. We're in zone 6B and we've had nonstop rains for the last few days. I want to say we've had at least 7 inches of rain, and I just use a little old coffee can for my measuring, so I'm not exactly sure. But it's been about 7 inches of rain, and there's been several really hard downpours. So I have a few areas of my garden that have a couple of small washout spaces. I want to say one of them is about 2 feet wide. The other side of my garden has about a foot wide spot. And I have lost a plant or two, and it's buried in the mud somewhere. So anyway, I got to put in my tomatoes. They're all in, they're ready to go. The tomatoes are actually in just a little bit early for us. They say Mother's Day for tomato plants, which is usually the first week in May. And I got these in about a week and a half ago. We had a pretty decent sized frost that came out of nowhere, but I got my plants in right after that, and they're all looking really good and they're doing great. So I have those, and then I also have my green pepper plants. I do about 10 plants of green pepper plants. They're in this row as well, and they're towards the end. And then I also have 6 jalapeno plants. We have jalapeno poppers, jalapeno jelly. I make jalapeno jelly usually every year. We go through that pretty heavily. I wanted to mention, we normally don't do cherry tomatoes. We don't normally plant them. We found over the years that we don't eat them all that much. What ends up happening with those is we'll be working out here in the garden and we'll go pick a few of them and we'll start throwing them at each other. So I've just made it to where I keep them out of my garden now because I don't want to have little cherry tomatoes chucked at me while I'm trying to check on a plant. So that is the main reason I don't plant cherry tomatoes anymore. For my tomato plants this year, I have mostly the Better Boy variety. I like those. They turn out really well. They usually get nice and big and red, juicy. They're just tremendous, and we use a lot of them for sandwiches and for salsa. Whatever we need them for, we'll use. I also have a few Rutgers tomatoes. I like those. And we also have a couple of Parks Whopper. So I've got a little variety this year of our tomatoes. And then our pepper plants are just your basic green pepper plants, and the jalapenos are just basic jalapeno plants. So that's what we've got in these 2 rows. In this row, next to my tomato plants, I have the bush variety of green beans. I like the bush variety better. I wasn't 100% sure on that till this last year. I did all pull beans, and I'm really sorry I did. Almost every year I've done the bush variety. They get to be up to about 3 feet tall. They make a nice little bush. You can pick your beans real easily, and they taste so much better than pull beans. I'm just sticking with those. So I have 1 complete row of bush variety beans, green beans. Over on this side I have my mound plants. I have some cucumbers and I have some zucchini plants. Now in this you'll see rows. I only have these rows here because halfway down the garden I have corn planted. So I wanted to make sure I had my row markings marked for my plants for my corn. So that's why you see in my mound, in amongst the mounds, that's why you see the lines. I don't have anything planted in a line until you get halfway down the garden. Then I have 5 rows of corn. And it's just sweet corn. I think it's peaches and cream variety. It always turns out really good, so that's why I planted those this year. I wanted to show you how I do my string and my nail. That's all I use is a nail. I wrap my string around it, and I use string that is polyester and cotton together. That way it holds together long enough that I'll be able to see what's in my rows, and I'll know where everything is planted. If I go to till this, I won't be able to till it though for a little while because it's been so wet here. As you can tell, we've had quite a bit of rain here, and yeah, my garden is super saturated right now. So I just wanted to show you though how I do this. I just take a string, tie it around the nail head, and then I just put it in the ground. So I put this nail in on this end, and then on the other end, I'll put the other nail and I'll have my string attached to it. And that way I'll have my row nice and straight. I'll know where everything is. I keep my strings in after I plant for a good 2 weeks, so that way I can see if my plants are coming up or not. That way I'll know. And in this row right here, I have quite a few little radish plants. I put those in. We do radishes every year. My husband loves them. Not so much for me, but he does love them. So I put those in for him, and they're shooting out of the ground. They always do. They only take about a month, a little less than a month to grow big enough to start eating those. So that's what we have this year. Those are all of our plants, and it's all kind of back to the basics for us this year.